This episode of Real Garbage is brought to you by drinking expired Buckley's cough medicine. It tastes like 3-day-old work socks and surprisingly still works.
This is Conor Runnings. This Real Garbage is brought to you by the Order of the Rastafari Church. That is a thing.
This is Real Garbage. What is up, Connor?
Well, it's a movie, a direction. That's up. I'm pointing towards the ceiling. I don't really have a definite answer for that question.
Well, folks, we have an unfamiliar voice on the microphone with us today. This is Conor Running. Is it Running or Runnings?
Runnings.
Runnings.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, my friend. So, okay, I have to ask you. This episode is brought to you by what is this Rastafarian? You were telling me a little bit about it when you got here, but I want to hear more.
Yeah. So basically, yesterday I went with my friend to this weird Rastafarian church. He's like, "Oh, you can buy weed from there," and I'm like, "Okay, since all the dispensaries shut down, I might as well find a new way to get stuff." Anyway, I went in there, and I don't know what I expected from a church that worships weed, but just the fact that, like, I go in there, and the guy starts doing a sermon, and I'm like, oh, shit, this is really serious. They're like, this is some actual church stuff that they believe in. And it is like an actual church, except it's in a strip mall, and there's a picture of Biggie on the wall.
That is priceless. Were they smoking weed in there? Or can they smoke weed in there? Because it's legal.
He did a little bit of incense, but nothing. It was mostly just talking about spirituality and religion. I think it's mostly just, there's like a parlor downstairs where you can like smoke and buy stuff. But it's mostly just like a church that has, well, obviously it has like a particular Rastafarian thing going from it. But it also like is kind of a front for a dispensary. Like you can buy stuff from there, and they'll say like, okay, you have a donation of $16 for this sort of thing. When you give you money for drugs, you call it donations.
Medicine.
They're just like, okay, I'm going to put these drugs here and not look at it. And if they happen to be gone by the time they turn around, I'll go about my day and you will too.
That's kind of how I was telling you a little bit. That's what they used to do in the States. I was in California 3 years ago before it was fully really legal. And everything was a delivery company. So yeah, as a Canadian going down there, I managed to get my weed card by Skyping with a doctor, which was hilarious. This guy was sitting in his living room. I could see a ceiling fan on the ceiling. I could see the family pictures on the wall. And he's like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" And I'm like, "Well, my back hurts. I've been in town walking all day yesterday." He's like, "You're a good candidate for medical cannabis." And within 20 minutes, he's like, "I'm emailing you your thing." And I called him up and they're like, "So, like, what do you want?" And my buddy and I are like, "Holy shit, we're going to get weed in America." So we just went online, checked their menu and called back, and we ordered like a quarter of Gorilla Glue and some. I've got a little lemon haze vape pen that we smoked like every day for 4 days, and it was cool because he's like, the guy goes, "So your donation today is going to be $120. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." He goes, "Cool. It's going to be about 40 minutes. Is that cool?" I'm like, "They're so sweet." I'm like, "Yeah, that's totally fine." And the best part was, buddy shows up, and I'm like, "I'm supposed to show you some credentials." He goes, "Nah, you guys look cool. Here you go." And I'm like, "Here's the money." He's like, "Enjoy." That shit, Connor, was so strong. We smoked one joint. I hadn't smoked weed in 15 days. We smoked one joint. Within 5 minutes of finishing it, I started to get tunnel vision, and my hearing sounded like I was underwater. I had to say goodbye to the guy we were talking to. I'm like, "I need to lay down, Tyler." And he's like, "You can be okay." I'm like, "I don't think so." By the time we got back to the condo, a minute later, I needed to lay on the floor for 10 minutes. I've never been that stoned. It was like, you remember the first time you ever got stoned?
Oh yeah, that was when I first got stoned. I was 5 times over the recommended starting dose. I just remember one of my friends had a bag of edibles and I just ate one and they're like, dude, you probably shouldn't have ate the entire thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't feel anything. And then we were watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine and it kicked in and I'm like,
So you
oh.
did edibles before you smoked weed? Like edibles first?
No,
Or was that like you smoked and then but the first time you felt the effects was when you did edibles?
actually, I guess, no, the first time I smoked weed was much before edibles, but
Did you get high the first time you smoked?
yeah, pretty high.
Yeah.
I guess I just went back to the story I just told you there because it's like some of the highest I've ever gotten. That was the first time I got high off edibles.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that was not fun. I was lying on the couch with my ex, begging them to sedate me for hours.
You were already sedated. That's what it does.
No, but I'm like, please, just give me a horse tranquilizer.
Give me a line of ketamine, please.
Yeah, they're like, Advil, take it or leave it.
Well, when you showed up here today, you mentioned you had some chocolate and you didn't realize how much you'd eaten the other night. Oh. And we figured it out. It was a 200 milligram chocolate bar, and you had 50 milligrams, which is a pretty good dose for most people.
Yeah. That was a fun experience. I was at a friend's house and he had to go out for a rehearsal, but he like propped me up on his bed, put the movie Midsummer on, and like enjoy, which admittedly was probably the perfect movie to watch in that state. But on the topic of Midsummer, we're going to talk about a less interesting horror movie.
We are, because it's Halloween coming up here. We're sticking with our theme of scary movies. Mm-hmm. And were you ever a camp kid? Did you ever go to camp?
A little. There wasn't much for camp on my island, but camp was just basically go to school during the summer.
Oh, gotcha.
There was not a lot to sell it.
I went to camp a couple times. It never had a murderer. Never had anybody die, which was good. I think we had a couple people almost die, but that's just the risk you run when you're a kid at camp.
Yeah, totally.
But we checked out the original 1980 slasher flick, Friday the 13th. I had actually, after watching this just now, I had never seen this movie.
Me neither.
I realized I'd never seen it, and which is surprising because it is the first of how many? We figure there's like
10.
Is there 10?
Yeah, Jason X is the last one, and it's the one where he's a cyborg, I think.
Yeah, he's in space, isn't he?
Yeah, Jason in space, and he's like on the International Space Station and terrorized a bunch of astronauts.
Oh, these movies get out of control. And then there's Freddy versus Jason, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So this one, yes. 1980, I always do the scores. It was 62% from the critics, 60% from the viewers, and it got a 6.5 out of 10 on the old IMDb scale.
That sounds about right, considering the time.
Yeah, this movie is older than me by 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, I'm sure you were saying earlier, I'm sure back in the 80s, this movie was probably really freaky, really scary.
No, it probably broke all the boundaries for that back then with films, but since we live in the time we live in now, where pretty much everything that ever happened in that movie has become a huge cliche or horror trope that a lot of good horror writers try to avoid now. Like, most of that movie was just jump scares.
Everything was a jump scare.
And not even good jump scares.
Predictable. You and I were calling every single jump scare.
Every single one.
We may have missed one, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure we hit every single one.
Yeah, just like, okay, she's going to come around here. She's going to break through the window. Oh, what was that bullshit about? We can swear on here, right?
Absolutely. Fucking A.
What was that bullshit about? There was one part where the final girl, Alice, I think her name was, was in the cabin or whatever, and she was hiding from a killer. And like, we're looking at the window. It's like the shot with like her and the window, and you were like, oh, the killer's gonna come through the window.
She's coming through the window.
And the killer shoves a dead, mutilated body through the window, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna cry and be sad about it, instead of doing what a normal person would do, which is, I don't know, fucking run.
Yeah, no one, and this is the thing I get the most angry about with these movies, is that nobody tries to defend themselves or run away or look back. Nobody. If I'm getting chased by a murderer, I'm sprinting for one, but it seems like everyone just forgets how to run once they're getting chased in these movies.
Yeah, they always trip and stuff. Like, it's like the adrenaline that kicks in when you feel it. It's supposed to like get you over all this stuff. And if you're tripping, then unless you did as many edibles as I did last night, you have no excuse.
You always hear stories about people's adrenaline kicking in and them lifting cars off of family members or jumping 9-foot tall fences or getting super strong. It's the opposite in these old horror movies. You just get weak and really bad, really poor coordination.
Speaking of adrenaline and being able to do superhuman things, let's talk about Mrs. Voorhees.
She's a power lifter.
Yeah,
by the looks of things.
She's like a little bitty old woman, but she's able to stab Kevin Bacon through the bed and through his neck.
With a broadhead arrow. I found that this camp itself, you're using, so I don't know if you're familiar with archery at all. I've done a little bit of archery and bow hunting.
You
have broadheads, which are your 4-bladed or 3-bladed, like killer arrow tips.
Okay.
And then you have your field tips for just practice shooting. None of these arrows at this camp should have had broadheads.
Yeah, I feel like that should just be a safety regulation, you know? Kids go to that camp.
It was the 80s, though. People didn't really give a shit about safety.
Yeah. Speaking of regulations and safety, it was really ironic that they didn't seem to get a shit about safety at all, since everyone dressed like they were the cast of like a really bad anti-drug PSA.
Or an educational video in school.
Although, to be fair, I guess it was kind of an anti-drug PSA, because basically everyone that did drugs or sex got murdered.
That's true. It was a lesson to everyone. Don't smoke weed, you hippies, because you gonna die.
Oh, what was that thing that cop said to Kevin Bacon about like, oh yeah, the reefer, the weed.
Oh, that guy was a walking PSA right there. What are you smoking? Don't smoke. Don't smoke the reefer. Don't smoke that. Blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what else he was saying, but
yeah, there's always like in like the old 80s movies, they tried to be edgy about weed, but they'd always have the guy who smoked it like hold it like in this villainous way that no one ever would.
The reefer addict. You ever seen the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
The one video that they're playing when he's like, the reefer addict. His eyes will be dark from tea shades, and his pants will be stained with semen from jacking off when he can't find a rape victim. They just made them sound horrible.
I don't remember that part, but that sounds about right.
I've watched that movie so much. It's in my top 5. I love it. But, okay, so we start this movie off. It's like they don't even tell us when it is. I'm guessing it was
present day.
Yeah,
it said present day.
After the intro where we see two camp counselors get murdered, they're doing that stupid kumbaya sing along, and then they get murdered. Then it's like, yeah, present day. I'm like, okay, Friday the 13th, present day. Guessing that's 1980.
Yeah,
in a small town.
No one had any iPhones or Uggs or dabbed at all.
So you would think that after someone got murdered at a camp, there would be no chance of them ever opening it up again.
Well, they did, like, people like, oh, you shouldn't go to there. And they had, like, that lame-ass nickname for it, Camp Blood.
Oh, God, they could have had so many better names.
Yeah, like, how about Camp Claustrophobic Cabins or Camp Unregulated Archery?
Camp Someone Got Murdered Here. We shouldn't go. Camp Don't Send Your Kids Here Ever.
Instead of Camp Crystal Lake, it should be Camp Crystallized Balls, because that's how they're going to find you.
Well, it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't know. If I had kids, I wouldn't send them to a camp in the middle of nowhere, especially if someone got murdered there.
I love dragging people into the middle of nowhere, but that's because I'm a young 20-something, and admittedly, I'm probably like, in one of these movies, I'm going to be like the first person to get murdered because I'm so horny for death.
You just look like the murderable type.
Yeah.
You got that face.
Yeah, it's like, well, if you didn't want to get murdered, you shouldn't have went out looking like that.
Yeah, this is your own fault. You were asking for it.
You just have such puppy dog eyes. It makes me want to kill you.
So this movie starts off, it's misleading because we both thought that this young woman coming to town was going to be the main character.
Yeah, it spent so much time focusing on her, and she was she had kind of like a final girl attitude, and you liked her because she was always like, first of all, she talked like a 12-year-old.
She sounded so young that the voice did not match her face.
Oh,
It threw me off.
this is a tangent. Speaking about the 80s, let's talk about all the casual misogyny that happened in the scene where we were introduced to her.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Okay. So she goes into that coffee shop, first of all, and asks, hey, which way is Camp Crystal Lake?
And then everyone turns around and the music stops, and
They look at her like she's a. I can't even express what their faces look like because they were like, ugh.
don't go to the camp where people get murdered.
They look like she just let the worst fart go and it stunk the whole place up. They're like, ugh.
And she was standing in the doorway, so it should have gone out.
It didn't make sense. But yeah, talk about that truck driver that gave her
Yeah,
a ride.
she got in the truck with like this super janky ass looking driver.
Enos was his name, I believe.
Enos.
I loved old names in the old days.
I don't think I've ever met anyone named Enos.
I don't think anyone's.
It sounds like anus.
I think anyone's mean enough to name their child Enos these days, or Gertrude, or Bertha. Like, seriously, there was no thought in names back in the day. Thank God I'm born now.
I mean, it was all based on like, I'm sure he was named after his dad or uncle or grandpa or something.
Oh, Grandpa Penis. Like, seriously. We're like, let's name him Enos. Yes, that sounds like the best name we could give our son.
It's penis or anus, either one. But anyway, maybe that's why he's been such a creep. Because anyway, he's like, I'll give you a ride. Are all the girls at the camp as cute as you? And then he like helps her into the truck by like pushing her ass up. Both hands.
Both hands.
I feel like that's a solid red flag right there.
Pretty sure he got a thumb in there somewhere. Maybe both. Maybe both.
And
Hop up into the truck there, girly.
And she's still talking to him on the drive like, oh, you.
The 80s
You're
were a
so bad.
The 80s were a different time. God damn. But okay, so they're in the truck. I love this. So she's like, what are you not telling me? Why shouldn't I go there? He's like, just quit now. Just quit now. What does she call him? An American original.
And thanks for reminding
You're an
me of-
American original.
He's an American original, if anything, a truck driver with a southern accent that picks her up and drives her to a place where he knows she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Only a true American original would do that.
He probably had rape on the brain. We're not sure. We didn't get to find out.
I'm just glad she didn't drink from his water bottle or something.
Here, have a sip out of this flask. It tastes like medicine.
Does this smell like roofie to you?
Does this rag smell like chloroform? Oh God, there's a little tangent. There was a video of a dude who tested out chloroform. Remember when Vine was big?
Yeah.
It was a Vine video. He chloroformed himself.
Can you actually do that on a Vine? It works that fast?
He did. He goes, I'm going to see if chloroform works. Yeah, I don't think it, bam, and he face plants into the wall. Who knows if it was real or not. It looked.
How did it get uploaded to Vine?
I don't know, but it was
because you have
good.
to like hold your finger on the thing when you're recording and press send. Maybe he had like a buddy there or
I think
something.
as soon as you let it go, it just saves that clip, doesn't it? And then you hit send, if I remember correctly.
Maybe.
used-
I never had it.
I wish I'd saved my Vine videos. I made a couple where I was in the house and I'm like, man, I'm hungry. No, I was playing Operation. I
Yeah.
bought Operation from Value Village and I'm like,
Of course.
I'm going, careful. And I touch the side and it goes, brr, and I cut to a video of a house exploding. No! And then I did it again. I'm like, I'm hungry. I want to get some food. I go, ooh, crispy minis. And I open the bag. Boom, the house explodes again. I use that thing for so many Vines.
Real Garbage, sponsored by Jeff's defunct Vine account.
I know. And you can't even find those things anymore because Vine, those videos are just gone. If you didn't save them, they're just gone.
Oh, yeah, I guess the ones you made themselves, but there's like all the Vine compilations on YouTube for teenagers who miss it. It's always something like clean vines to cheer you up when you feel like life is not worth living or something. And it'll be a guy going like, I can't believe you've done this.
Well, so many of the big guys that got their names really out there during Vine.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were smart. They saved their videos. This is one guy, Simon Rex. I follow on Instagram. I don't know if he's a comedian or not, but he's just a funny motherfucker.
Yeah?
And he's got a ton of, like, one of my favorites that I remember of his was he's on a boat and he's going, living the boat life, bitches. And he goes, what's that? And his, like, doors moving. He's like, just a removable bathroom, NBD.
I feel like I've seen that in one of those compilations.
It's so good. I can't find it anywhere though.
But anyway, I feel like we should get back to the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love how she says, "You sound like Ralph." So
Ralph,
she met Crazy Ralph.
Yeah, this was a guy we forgot to mention. When she was going in there, there was just a random crazy soothsayer dude who's just like, "You are doomed."
Doomed.
Yeah, what did I write here?
I just said, "You sound like Ralph." I'm like, how the hell did you get all the names? Like she's got a great memory on her. I will give her that.
Yeah, but this guy just goes around giving ominous hints, and then later he shows up because he sneaks into the pantry.
Oh,
he
Jesus.
rides his bike all the way to the camp, which is like how far out of
They
town?
said 20 miles.
20 miles out of town. He just rides his bike there, goes, "You're doomed," and leaves. Like, if you really care that much about their safety, stay and protect them.
I will say, it's a single speed bike too. An old school, rusty ass single speed bike. He did 20 miles.
Like,
when was the last time you biked 20 miles? Miles, not kilometers. That's like 36 kilometers or something.
Biking from my parents to my neighbor's house is enough.
The last time I got on my bike was in the summer, and I maybe did 10K. I'm in pretty good shape. That had me tired. This is an old man who's maybe all he does is just ride that bike.
He was just riding like a Stranger Things bike.
Yeah, basically, or a fucking hi-ho silver from It.
Away.
So now I love how we get introduced to Kevin Bacon and the other. I can't remember who else. I think it's Ned, or is it
Ned,
Bill?
There was
Ned.
Bill. Bill is a discount Paul Rudd, and Ned is a discount Matthew Lillard.
And yeah, Ned's already at the camp chopping up that. No, that was Steve. Never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyway,
Steve is a guy who looks like discount Robin Williams from Hook.
Absolutely does. He never wanted to grow up. But I love how they got the banjo music just blasting in their truck.
Like we're about to watch Deliverance or something.
Go back the way you came. It was a little weird.
It just sounded like frickin' Yosemite Sam there.
Go! Who wants to listen to banjo music, though? When was the last time you're like, hey, Spotify, fire up a banjo playlist?
Sometimes it's nice if it comes up out of the blue. You're like, okay, I can jam to this. Like, I mean, the Gulf Island I live on, Lasqueti, it's very like country music is very fitting.
I love country music. Banjo, though, if it's in a country song and it's a banjo solo,
yeah,
maybe. But by choice, I ain't firing up a banjo song. Couldn't even name one. Well, I could. The only one that.
There's dueling banjos.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the only one I can think of. I could not tell you one other song that has banjo in it.
Yeah, it's just you hear rule of horror movie. You hear banjo, you gon' die.
Run, just run. So I loved how. Okay, so we get introduced to Steve, discount Robin Williams, with his no shirt, jean shorts, with horrible wood chopping posture, I might add.
He also looked like Weird Al with the glasses and the hair.
Oh, he did.
Maybe he was Weird Al.
Been spending most his life in the middle of Amish paradise. Is he still making music?
Oh yeah, no. He recently went on a no strings attached tour where he brought like a whole string band with him.
Really?
He put out an album in like 2014. I really hope he works on a new album actually, because I can't wait to hear his Bad Guy.
Oh, was it Billy? He's going to do a Billie Eilish ripoff, you figure?
Probably. And This Is America. He'll probably do that too.
This is America. Don't get you slipping up.
This is 7-Eleven.
Fill up your Slurpee cup. Fill up your Slurpee cup. All right, so it's this who we thought was the main character gets picked up in a Jeep.
Yeah, get picked up in a Jeep by someone who is obviously the killer because they won't show his or her face at all. Drives past the camp and she's like, "What are you doing? The camp is this way. I'm really trying to be friendly, but you're kind of pushing me."
Well, no, and I go, tuck and roll. And she did. I didn't think she would. I didn't think she was
obeyed
going
your
to.
advice.
Tuck and roll, bitch. She just does.
But then she did that thing that you said where she just kept tripping over her own feet when she's running away from someone who's trying to kill her. If you're going to tuck and roll out of a car, then get ready to sprint.
And she was. I loved how this. I love how this sequence was shot because that Jeep was hauling ass. She tucked and rolled, and she rolled once like she had been like running, and then just went, oh.
What was it going, like 80 miles an hour?
It was going fast. It was going really fast. And I just, again, she gets, so Mrs. Voorhees is obviously a sprinter and a power lifter because she's following her, circles around her somehow, gets in front of her, and then this woman doesn't fight back at all.
And then she gets her throat cut open like a bitch.
Yeah, I just, this shit just drives me nuts. At least fight back. At least put your hands up and go, ah, try to stop her.
Like, if your hands are going to get cut up, it's better than your throat.
Yeah. I'd rather lose a finger than, get my jugular nicked. Because you ain't going to survive that.
Yeah, also you're in broad daylight, too. You can see everything.
Yeah.
Just, examine your surroundings. Get a rock or, throw a bunch of leaves in her face and, frickin' get outie.
I would think this would be my strategy because I feel like if you just got a nice steady jog going, you could outrun a murderer.
Yeah, totally.
Easily.
Maybe weave through trees or drag the branches behind you so they snap back.
Yeah. Oh no, she's chasing me. Whoop-bam! Right in the face. Well, it's like rule number 1 on Zombieland. Cardio.
Yeah, all the Zombieland rules could actually be applied here. Double tap because, oh my god, how many times in the final fight sequence when she's like, oh, I'm just gonna hit her once, not make sure she's dead, and then try to leave, only for her to jump scare and try to kill me again.
Bash her fucking face in! Oh, it's carelessness.
Just stomp on her jugular.
I think we need to make a realistic horror movie. Like we were talking about this during the movie. I said where everybody stays together. No one's allowed to leave. If you got to go to the bathroom, you go together. And then if the killer tries to jump you, you all jump the killer and you just murder them. And it's over. This movie would be 20 minutes long.
Yeah, slashers are super easy to break if you actually figure out what's going on. If it's like a guy with a knife, I've played that simulation out in my head so much. Before I even watched horror movies, I would just be scared of some rando stranger coming in my room. I'd be like, okay, first thing I do is throw my Van de Graaff generator at them. And then maybe get the reclining chair to kick out and knock them off their feet. And then run.
You put some thought into this.
Yeah, well,
I need to take a note out of your book. I think I got a kettlebell. I'd probably just go for the kettlebell and just slam. It's 40 pounds. I'd just slam them in the chest with that. And then smash their skull in with it.
I also have a guitar in my room, so I could hit him with that.
Good weapon.
But if I don't have to sacrifice my guitar to save my life, I really don't want to.
Oh, no, my axe. My figurative axe, not literal axe. God damn it. Okay, you made a comment at one point, the writing in this, because they ask the stupidest question.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a part where they're all getting to know each other, and they're like, oh, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
If you were a flavor of ice cream, what would it be?
And then one was like rock and roll.
I'd be, fuck you, that's what I'd be. Ask better questions, stupid. But then Buddy rolls into the water, and this is the worst thing you could do to people. I'm going to pretend I drowned.
Yeah, and there was I think they just wanted to set the tone by having there be a fake scare that isn't actually going on. But still, that's a shitty thing to do to a person. Also shitty thing to do, period. Would you want to pretend you were drowning? People might not even come save you. They'll be like, oh, he's just doing it as a prank. Oh, and it was Ned, wasn't he? It was discount Matthew Lillard.
That guy was a piece of shit.
That guy was...
Glad he died quick.
He was another good example of just all the 80s misogyny. And yeah, he was trying to hit on that one woman a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, you're cute when you're angry.
Imagine how triggered society would be if that happened in a movie now. Oh my God, I can't believe he pretended to be dead. That's so offensive. I'm offended. Would just be outrage. Outrage. Back then, people were like,
or how he
moron.
Almost shot her with an arrow.
Oh, yeah. That was a dick move. Because you're shooting, first of all, with a recurve bow, not a compound bow. So your accuracy is not even close to what it should be. So this guy must have been a professional to put that arrow within a foot of her.
With real arrows.
Yeah. Because as we saw, they were broadhead arrows. They weren't field tips. And he's just laughing about it. He's like, oh. I'm hilarious. Watch what I do
I'm
with my
so
trick
clever.
shot. He goes to load up 2 arrows. I'm like, dude, you're a piece of shit. I'd be putting an arrow through that guy's face or drowning him for
It
real.
was a good way to foreshadow how she was gonna die, though.
But she didn't die like that. It wasn't her, remember? Remember,
Right.
because she got lured into the arrow, the
No,
archery
it
field.
was the discount Paul Rudd that was like pinned to the door.
Pinned to a door up off his feet. So that means Mrs. Voorhees had to lift, I'm going to guess he's 180, 185.
Probably.
180 pounds of dead weight up onto a door and then put 3 arrows through him and through the door. Those are some very strong arrows, and she's a very strong woman.
Weight is so much heavier when it's dead. Like the human body, like if I were to just lift you up now, it would be way easier than if you were dead and had like gone into rigor mortis and had,
Yeah.
like shit your pants. That adds so much weight to it, and it's so hard to move. Don't ask me how I know.
What are you not telling us, Connor?
Oh,
Where are the bodies
you.
buried?
In my
Oh, you. So I love the snake in the cabin. They mentioned there were snakes in the cabin.
and then there was actually a snake in the cabin.
He chops it twice. I'm like, one's probably enough. It's good.
It was the most like that. Honestly, I kind of respect it because that guy did way more than Alice ended up doing with
Yeah.
Mrs. Voorhees. Like, I wish that had been the final guy. He would have finished the job really well.
Well, we only saw that machete twice, which I thought was interesting. That scene, and then once later when
Yeah,
Alice
like-
and Voorhees are fighting.
Like the machete was always like Jason's weapon of choice in like the future films, wasn't he? It's kind of like an icon.
Yeah. Oh, you got to love the 80s for cultural appropriation.
Oh,
Ned dancing around doing the like the legit
With the-
straight up Indian
with the-
headdress on too. That would again, this movie now, if they made it shot for shot right now, the outrage on the internet would be insane.
like I'm just thinking about like the huge dick character in Midsummer, who was more just kind of like a subtle dick, but everyone still hated him. And now look at this guy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So we've talked about Ralph already. He shows up here in a little bit and tells them all they're doomed. And we've got Jack, old Kevin Bacon, Jack and Brenda.
Yeah,
Jack and Brenda starting to get it
cou-
on.
the couple that hooks it up. And as both of us, as soon as we saw they were going to do it, I was like, they gonna die.
Yep, because if you can't have sex in a horror movie and
No.
live, it's not possible.
Or like, if you do, make sure that. I was gonna say make sure there are other people around, but unless you want to turn out like that one scene in Midsummer, then Midsummer spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it.
I haven't
Anyway,
seen it. I haven't seen it. I need to watch it.
oh shit, watch it. It's one of the best horror movies.
I wrote it down though. We were talking about that at Logan's one night, and I wrote it's on my list.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
It's on Netflix, right?
No, it isn't. I just rented it from YouTube.
Okay, I'll find it.
You'll find a way to watch it.
So I love this. They got so Ned. Okay, as much as I didn't like Ned's character, motherfucker's got some skills on that guitar.
That was not Ned. That was Bill.
Oh wait, that was Bill. Fuck Ned. Oh yeah, Ned was dead.
Ned was dead.
Ned
He
was
was
dead
up
on the-
in the bunk up where like Kevin Bacon and that girl were having sex. He was in the bunk above them, just dead, and they didn't smell it at all or see the little droplets of blood on his pillow, which I admit was a nice touch.
Move this a little closer.
Oh, am I being too
Hey,
quiet?
there you go. Yeah. Get right in there. Get that.
Oh,
get that
yeah.
bass. But yeah, I commented too that he had his throat cut on the top bunk.
Mm-hmm.
You cut a jugular. There's a lot of blood. And we only saw little specks of blood on the edge of the pillow down below.
And Miss Voorhees is really good at cleaning up after herself. There was like,
Yeah.
oh no, she put like the machete in Kevin Bacon's bed. I really should just be calling him by his actual name.
Yeah, he's Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, he put the machete in Kevin Bacon's bed to freak the other campers out, but it was like totally clean of blood.
This movie brought to you by the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. Need to clean up a blood spill? Get the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. Club soda ain't cutting it? Mr. Clean. There should have been so
Slashing.
much blood.
Slashing prices and campers.
There should have been so much blood.
That would have been scary enough. Like, she didn't have to put in all this extra effort. It's scary as it is. Like, I get sick if I see like my finger cut open or something. So that much blood.
Oh, last year I worked 82 days straight between two jobs, and I had a weekend off in the middle. And I was really excited. It was Friday. I had the next 2 days off, and I'm cutting my spinach for breakfast. I'm like, yeah, and I just wasn't paying attention, and I almost sliced the whole tip of my thumb off. Ooh, holy shit, did it bleed? I'm like, ooh, that's a hospital trip. So I wrap it up, and I had all my Band-Aids were in my bag already packed in the car. I had to run outside. I scared the shit out of my neighbor because I'm like, hey, I flag him down as he's driving away because I couldn't get the Band-Aid on by myself. I'm like, can you give me a hand here for a second? He's like, whoa, what happened? I'm like, I might have cut myself a little bit. As I uncover my thumb, it just goes, bleh, and he goes, holy shit. I'm like, that's a lot of blood. That's a lot of blood. He goes, oh my God. I'm like, it's cool. It's cool. As I'm starting to get lightheaded, I'm like, oh, he's got to get a Band-Aid on there, Dan. Please just get a Band-Aid on there. And he puts one on there and he puts it. He's shaking. I'm like, it's cool. Just calm down, man. Just calm down. Gets two on there. I wrap it up with paper towel, tape. I went to work. I go, hey, boss, can I get the medic to look at this? He goes, what'd you do? I'm like, oh, I kind of cut myself. He goes, go to the hospital. I said, well, here's the thing. I don't know if my BC medical's up to date at the moment. So he goes, get the hell out of here and go to the hospital. I'm like, damn it. It was, thankfully. So they just cleaned it up, gave me a tetanus shot, glued it closed.
That is rough.
But that was my thumb, and there was so much blood. So you're getting your throat cut. There should be, well, how many, there's like 5-6 pints of blood in the human body. There's a lot.
I feel bad for not knowing this.
I think I want to say it's between 5 and 8. Ballpark.
Probably.
Yeah.
Just, there's a certain amount of buckets you can fill.
I love how the others start playing Strip Monopoly. So
they didn't have Cards Against Humanity back then, so they just had to make everything involve stripping.
Did you ever play Monopoly?
A little bit. I played all like the standard games, Monopoly, Scrabble. Monopoly, I would never play it because all the people that I would play it with would get mad and overturn the board and
Me
send
too.
the little pieces everywhere.
I have flipped a Monopoly board before because I hate that game. It always ends in rage. I don't know why. You know what it is? Because I always spend my money in the because you can't buy anything the first round. I always start buying up everything in the second round. That I never have enough money to pay anybody. It's just like real life. I never have enough money.
When do you think Monopoly is going to get in-game DLC?
Jesus Christ.
Then he could really go cha-ching.
There's so many expansions for it. There's so many different versions of it. For me, I don't play it anymore. I don't play that or Trivial Pursuit. Because Trivial Pursuit, I have a friend, Blake. Shout out, Blake. You met him today. He's a smart ass because he knows a lot of useless trivia. And every time you get a question wrong, he'll go, "You stupid idiot!" And we all just get fucking. It's almost comical. I wish we could just record ourselves playing Trivial Pursuit because we get ridiculously at each other. It's vicious. It's
I want to
vicious.
steal that.
Oh man, you fucking stupid people. It gets bad. We haven't played in a long time.
But anyway, Strip Monopoly. What was about that part where like he lost money and she's like, "You owe me one boot."
One boot. And he's wearing cowboy boots in the summer at a campground.
Again, they dress like they're in a PSA.
Yeah. It seems
all the boys are dressed like ranch hands and all the girls are dressed like stay-at-home moms of 40. Even though, well, it was the 80s and they're teenage actors, so they're probably all 30.
I did make a comment where, because you were saying that them playing scared in this movie is tough, but they're not doing it very well. I had a theory that it was just the 80s and the director was probably just high off his ass on coke, just going, yep, looks great. All right, set up the next shot. Woo! I fucking love this movie.
I just imagine that part in the original It where the adult Beverly's like talking about Pennywise and she's like, "Why is he so mean?"
Because he's a murderous clown demon with homicidal tendencies, I guess.
Exactly.
So now we go to the bathroom. Have you ever had to poop in an outhouse at night in the dark?
It's the most terrifying thing in the world.
It's scary as hell.
I'm always afraid something's gonna like come up from the bottom. Like some giant poop monster or something.
You ever see there was an old movie, you probably haven't seen it, called Ghoulies?
No, I haven't.
It was a movie about monsters that would come out of the toilet. And I'm not kidding. When I was like 10, I watched it, and I used to get my sister when I'd go. This was for like a month or two. I'd get my sister to sit outside the bathroom door when I was pooping, and just have a conversation with her. It was
Nice.
the weirdest thing. But I was scared these little things were going to come out of the toilet. That movie, my mom and I was subjected to a lot of scary movies as a small child. My mom was dating this guy for a while who used our like thing on the weekends was let's go to Clemenson's Movies and More and rent. You can get 10 movies for 10 days for $10. And he'd be like, go nuts, pick whatever you guys want. We'd rent scary fucking movies.
Oh my God.
Like I watched It. I'm scared of clowns because I watched that movie numerous times as a 9-year-old.
I imagine like I as an adult have seen it late in my life, like a couple years ago, and I wasn't really that scared of it, but that's
Yeah.
because it didn't make like such a lasting impression because I wasn't like I feel like for a lot of people who saw it originally, it was just like that good nostalgia, and it could be legitimately scary sometimes, but just I'm so used to the horror we have now. It's so funny that I'm such a horror snob now because I used to hate them when I was a kid.
Like horror movies in general?
Hate them.
Why?
I was scared. I was not a horror movie fan, and my best friend was super into horror movies. I lived on like this really isolated island called Lasqueti, which was mostly forest, and there was this creepy orchard that I lived next to that had like this Blair Witch shack in the back that like a mirror and one bed, and I was like, okay, I imagine the victims are probably tortured here.
Jesus.
And there's like a bunch of broken glass everywhere. And somebody since moved onto that property. But when I was 6, it was the most terrifying thing in the world. They told me that there was like a lady with no skin back there, made up stories to terrify me. I'm still kind of
You seem like there's still some little trauma in there.
a little, admittedly. And it's funny because the tables have turned since then because she hates horror movies now because she's actually had to go through the scariness of life. And now I'm a 20-something who just kind of wants to test my boundaries with everything. So,
How old are you? 23, 24?
21.
Oh, wow. You're so young.
Yes,
You have
I
your
am.
whole life ahead of you, Connor. It's sweet that you, dude. I'm stoked that you're doing stand up at 21, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, I really like doing it.
Yeah, and you're fun to watch, man.
Thank you.
I wish I'd like known about it or started doing it, but like I just wasn't. I don't know. I was doing other stuff. I was partying and drinking and smoking too much weed at 21.
I mean, I'm also doing that, but
It happens. It's part of life.
exactly, you have to test your limits. That's how these things happen.
So Brenda gets an axe to the face, like full on to the face
That
in this
was
bathroom scene.
brutal.
It was pretty horrific, but again, no attempt to stop it. No attempt to defend herself.
Oh no, she was just like, this isn't real. This isn't real.
You have fake news. Bam.
If you
Toast.
if you think you see something, you run.
Yeah, I love how she's like, oh, you guys, come on, stop it. She's in the bathroom by herself. She just left people. Like, it's like, no, just don't. Just run. Just
I don't
finish brushing your
care.
teeth and go.
I don't care if there's no killers on this facility. If we're at a campground and there's a public bathroom and we're this far from society, I'm bringing someone with me.
Of course. Like, stay, at least go as pairs. Stay
Yeah.
in pairs. Have your accountability buddy with you.
Yeah, accountability buddy. That's actually
I stole that from Simpsons. Ah, the accountability buddy.
that
Oh,
actually
no, wait, that's South Park.
it sounds like a good thing to have when
It
you're
is.
like because these teenagers are also like drinking a lot, so
And smoking weed. I don't know where they got the beer from.
the-
The camp has broadhead arrows, guns, a full artillery, and beer.
probably Peter. He was older, wasn't he?
Yeah, I suppose.
Peter was his name, right?
Oh wait, Steve
The
at the diner?
the guy who looked like Weird Al.
Yeah, Steve.
Steve, yeah.
Steve. I'm like Peter. There's no Peter. Peter. No, now we go back to the diner, and it was weird too because you're like, I wonder where Steve is. All of a sudden, boom, diner, and now we see Steve.
To be honest-
predictability to the T.
To be honest, I kind of forgot about Steve until then. And he's a hard guy to forget about too. He looks like Weird Al, and he's wearing a freaking
Red bandana.
red bandana and cutoffs. He basically is dressed like my dad. And
In all of the old photos from his like late teens and early 20s, because that was the outfit back then. Pretty sure there's pictures of my parents with that same outfit.
no, my dad just really likes wearing short shorts.
Still just wears them now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Who wears short shorts? Connor's dad wears short shorts.
Yeah.
I love. He's like, oh, I better get back to the campground because those guys are just babes in the woods. I'm like, it always seems weird when people call other people babes, like in reference to babies. It seems really odd. Like, oh, they're just babes in the woods.
Wait,
it
was he calling them in reference to?
Yeah.
I thought he was more just being like, okay, there are some hotties I have waiting for me.
He's bisexual. He likes them all. Like, they're all babes. Better get back there. Then he puts on his yellow slicker, and you said he looked like...
Yeah, he looks like he's about to get killed by a Dilophosaurus.
I'm going to run you over when I come back down.
Or like he's about to disappear into a sewer.
Or like he knew what we did last summer. They all float down here, Steve. My boat! So he ends up cruising around with his Jeep. His Jeep breaks down. He gets picked up by the police Jeep. I love the cops just cruising around. What was the cop doing driving down the middle of nowhere at night? It seemed odd. Like, in that kind of place, you'd figure the cop would be chilling at the diner.
Well, I mean, at first when I saw that, I assumed he was just driving down to the camp to check up on them since they're at the middle of nowhere.
That makes sense.
That would be the reasonable thing to do, but then he dropped it off as like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, he just leaves Steve there. Well, see you later.
Get the cops with their artillery. And
so Brenda gets misled. She hears someone going, help me. And we realize it. And then she goes outside. I love how she gets ready for bed. She puts on her nightgown. She's reading. And then she's like, here's this, help me. And she goes, oh, better go outside and investigate. Doesn't put on a raincoat. It's like, this is fine. Like, you're going to go back to bed soaking wet. You're going to have a cold.
She was just hanging out on the porch, though.
Yeah, well, then eventually she walked into the archery field where I'm like, oh, God. She's going to turn into a human pincushion. Little to the left, real more. But no, we didn't even know how she got killed.
Well, didn't she have...
She was just tied up with a rope, but she wasn't even. It was like loosely tied. It was like a granny knot.
and we thought she was alive because the actress was doing such a terrible job playing bad. I was like, is she breathing?
And action.
She was probably on the cocaine too.
Oh, all of them were.
But they had enough to go around.
It was the 80s. So I love how it's now Bill and Alice go to find a phone. It's a rotary payphone. Oh, and where's the key to this office? Wait, hang on. I'll get it. She just breaks the window.
It's like, oh, I just found it in my pocket.
Yeah, oh, I had it on me the whole time. Silly me. I love how they got a payphone in the middle of nowhere. Rotary phone as well. Have you ever seen a rotary phone? Do you have one on Laskeety somewhere?
No. We have like a payphone, like a dial payphone, like a phone booth that hasn't been used since 2001, I want to say.
We had an old rotary phone in my basement when I was growing up.
Oh.
And that thing was like, da-da-da-da-da-da. And if you fuck up that last number, god damn it, you push the thing down. We had a party. Do you know what a party line is? We had a party line.
I've heard it. I've heard the name.
We shared a party line with our neighbors, Marnie. She would be on that thing all the time. It drove me nuts. You'd be like, go to call your neighbor, go to call somebody who's like, blah, 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 blah. She's talking, and you could tell when someone picked up the other phone. You just hear oh, so you'd be like, wait, hold on, I think the neighbor's picked up the phone. Ah! And you hang up. But every once in a while, you try to like be real stealthy about it and listen in for a while. She was a gossiper, gossiping all the time. But okay, I was wondering, where was Ralph in this whole storm? Because this storm, there's no way he biked 20 miles before this storm started.
Maybe he's just, I don't know.
He's out dooming people.
There was a graveyard right there that looked way more welcoming. He's probably just chilling there, being like, excited to meet you.
You're doomed.
Just looking at all the old ladies that pass by there and go, you're next.
Oh, I love, you made a comment about so the cop dropped Steve off.
Uh-huh.
And the police siren, you said didn't even sound like a siren. It sounded like some person just.
Yeah. like freaking Toad from Mario Brothers.
They couldn't find the royalty-free sound effects. So like, hey, just make a sound like a police siren.
Just Wii U into the mic.
Woo, 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 woo. Wee, wee.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then, yeah, Steve instantly, like right away, he's like, hey, who's that? Now, if you're walking up to somebody in the dark and they're shining a flashlight in your eye and you're going, hey, who are you? And they're not responding, would you keep walking towards them? Would you start? I'd start sidestepping. At least keep some distance.
I'd just be more like, you want to get crazy? We can get crazy. Us reference.
Don't you know I'm loco? Us was a great movie.
Uh-huh.
I watched that in theaters. That was pretty cool.
I love how our conversation keeps coming back to horror movies that are way better than the one we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, have you seen Jordan Peele's going to rewrite Candy? He's rewriting Candyman or like writing
Yeah,
Candyman?
no, I heard about that.
Yeah, I thought he was going to direct, but he's not directing. He's just one of the
writing.
writers. That should be good.
I'm pretty sure they're getting Tony Todd to come back too. So
Yeah. Wait, that would be awesome. That guy's voice is awesome.
He's really good at playing really creepy roles.
Yeah. He was in, I don't know if you've ever seen the old movie Platoon.
No.
Oh man, that's a very star-studded movie, but he just had a small bit part in that, and he was just great in it too. It's an interesting movie. Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, a bunch of other big names in it. I think Johnny Depp has a small part in it too.
I feel like it's an important part of film history I should be more familiar with, but I'm just not.
There's a lot of movies out there, man.
Yeah, so many. Like, there's so many that you could bring them up and be like, fuck, I'm behind.
Oh, I've tried making lists, and I'm just like, there's too many.
Yeah, then you don't want to see what's on the list because it becomes a chore.
Yep. That's like, I'll just pick and choose. Just pick and choose ones for the podcast. That's all we need to do.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm just going to watch It again, or I'm just going to watch Midsummer again.
That seems to be the thing of our generation now. Our generations is like, there's so much stuff to watch. You just go, I'll watch this movie for the 10th time. I catch myself doing it all the time. It's a horrible habit that I have. But I just love movies.
Me too. I love just like memorizing dialogue from a scene, repeating it in conversation, and watching nobody get it.
I get it, Connor.
You get it.
Sometimes.
You're like the only one who gets it.
I love making movie references. That's all my brain is full of is movie quotes,
Pretty
TV
much,
quotes,
yeah.
song lyrics, and ridiculous jokes. But okay, so now we've addressed the pincushion bill already. This is where Alice has boarded herself into the room now. Or no, she sees him, then she goes and boards herself in. The body comes through, and she doesn't look around at all. What? And then she meets,
She was about to, like, when she locks herself in that room, she uses a rope and, like, ties it around a beam. I legit thought that she was so scared she was going to hang herself to get out of it.
She's like, fuck this. I'm done. I'm out.
I'm out.
That'd be a terrible way to go. I'd probably just...
That would be more terrible than the stabbing.
I don't know how, if I had to kill myself, I don't know how I'd do it. You know what? I'd probably jump off a cliff. At least you get an adrenaline rush before. But I've heard stories of people who have committed suicide and lived. When they jump off a high cliff, they get halfway down and realize, I shouldn't have done this. This was a terrible idea. I want to live.
Exactly, yeah.
No, so maybe I wouldn't. I'd probably just drink a bunch of poison or something. No, that'd be painful.
I didn't realize we talked about good ways to kill ourselves on your podcast.
Yeah, what was the podcast about? Well, we get pretty dark. We get a little dark.
Well, yeah, Halloween.
So she meets Mrs. Voorhees here and realizes real quick that she's a psychopath.
I love how the whole Jason thing is not even hinted to throughout the movie. Like, this whole thing is brought up now. Like, one of my favorite things in movies and going back and being like, oh, I should have seen that in the beginning. They weren't like,
there was none of that.
It's like by the Voorheeses or...
Yeah, there was no mention of her either. The only mention of the kid who drowned. That was it. We didn't know who he was. We didn't know his name. I don't think so. Anyway, I don't remember.
There was a mention of a kid who drowned before she showed up.
I think so. Somewhere in maybe the truck driver said it, or maybe someone in that coffee shop in the beginning said it.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, you don't want to go there. Someone drowned there, and then I can't remember. It was hours ago.
To the actress's credit, she actually did a really good job being creepy as Mrs. Voorhees.
Oh yeah,
Like when she was saying, like, "Kill them, mommy, kill them."
I will, Jason. I will. But I love this. So she doesn't really fight back, or she hits her a little bit. And I'm like, and we always kept yelling, "Keep beating her! Keep beating her! Stop doing the classic movie mistake and letting her fall down and going, she's good. I'm gonna run now."
Oh, and when she was like just overpowering her, she just like grabbed her shirt and just like slapped her.
Oh yeah, you're like, is she gonna slap her to death? She
gonna-
could have. She's a strong woman.
Is this going to be a sissy fight?
Well, it would be one-sided because they never fight back. But I loved how she runs out. So she runs out, and Bill's body just happens to fall perfectly right when she's running
Oh,
by.
yeah. All the corpses are rigged so that they come out at the convenient time for it to be scary.
So this Mrs. Voorhees is methodical in her scare tactics, which is crazy.
Yeah, she goes way above and beyond.
So I love how Alice gets to a place. There's a spot where she finds guns. She's trying to find bullets. Voorhees turns the generator on. Lights come on, and she gets in there. She's backing away. She throws a gun at her, and then she has everything. So many melee weapons to hit her with. What does she grab? A ball of twine.
yarn.
Like, fucking come on. Throws it. It's like throwing toilet paper, like in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Doo-doo paper. You're throwing doo-doo paper. Come on. Like, you're throwing the weakest thing at her. Hit her with a gun. Swing it like a baseball bat. Use your weapons.
Exactly. Like, or when we went back into the house and there were like all those places, I'm like, shit, bash her over the head with that cantaloupe.
Yeah, she had at one point a little mini trident. She could have stabbed her in the neck with that.
What happened to that trident? We never saw it again.
She just dropped it because she was scared. But she locked herself into the pantry and managed to get it. I'm like, cool, cast iron pan, great choice. Those things are heavy as fuck.
And she managed to knock Mrs. Voorhees out, but again, didn't check to see if she was dead.
Yep, there's a little bit of blood. She goes,
And-
okay, we're good.
And left the pan behind.
Yeah, I don't understand that. You find a good weapon, keep it. Keep it. And all she had to do is just hit her in the skull 2 more times with that cast iron pan. It's over.
Double tap that shit.
Yes. Rule number 2, the double tap.
Exactly.
And then she goes and just like, it's all over. I'm going to go sit in the dark on the edge of the water.
One last scare.
And remember and just reflect on how this evening rolled out. And then, yeah, of course, jump scare. Here we go. And she gets the machete and Alice is strong enough to chop through bone, muscle, sinew, the whole 9 yards of Mrs. Voorhees' neck.
That was amazing. Like, she couldn't even she couldn't even defend herself. She was so powerful, couldn't even defend herself, and didn't use her superhuman strength to get out of this. She could have put the fucking frying pan through her head.
Yeah, with that kind of strength, like, come on. I think, like, even in those decapitation videos on YouTube, it even takes a couple of swipes for those ISIS guys to get through there. I've never watched one. I'm just making this up.
Yeah,
I know they exist, though. And I love the end song. I said it sounded like the end of the chicken fight on Family Guy.
Oh, my favorite part in her getting decapitated was when she went down, she made those hand gestures like, "Oh, I'll get you next time, you meddling kid."
Foiled again!
Exactly. Like, oh, kind of almost like that girl in the beginning, like, "Oh, you."
And I love how she's in the lake. Cops come out. They're like, hey. And then the body of Jason pulls her out of the boat, and she wakes up in the hospital. Because it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazines, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. It's the only part of that song I know.
Well, the only part she dreamed was being found with Jason, but then they were like, "He's still out there."
Yeah, that was just weird. Like, what a
9 more
weird,
sequels to go.
weird way to end it. Now I have to watch the second and third because I think I can't even remember which ones I've seen. To be honest with you, I know I've seen Jason X, like when he's in space, and Freddy versus Jason, and all those other ones. Yeah,
I'm just gonna watch Jason Takes Manhattan and hope for a musical number, like just a part where they're like all throwing their machetes in unison, or like maybe there's like a fountain of blood coming up and they have like steel-toed tap shoes.
We can't get out of this camp. Jason the musical. Well, we made it to the end. Well, I'm not going to say like this movie could have been better anyway.
It really could have.
Back in the 80s, though, I'm sure this was pretty scary, because people weren't adjusted to the jump scares and they weren't scarred by all the shit we've seen on the internet.
But it's not a classic.
No.
Not a classic.
It did not hold up at all.
Yeah, just put generic slasher movie in, like, honestly, I feel like you could take every slasher movie ever made and put it into like an AI or like one of those things that generates like chapters of a Harry Potter book or something.
Or the scripts from TV shows.
Yeah, and then just put all slasher movies ever into one of those, and then Friday the 13th comes out. Or one of its sequels.
It was pretty bad. Well, now it's time for us to rate it. And how we rate things is you can just rate it whatever out of whatever you feel like. Like, for example, I'm going to give this movie 3 80s hairdos out of 12 blood-soaked Mr. Clean magic erasers.
Okay, I rate it a suction cup arrowhead out of a regular arrowhead.
Nice, the old Nerf style.
Yeah. If they had Nerf guns, then they would totally be up to safety code. Everything would be fine. Like, honestly, Mrs. Voorhees may have killed all of them, but they killed themselves with how careless they were being.
Pretty much. All they had to do to survive was defend themselves, stay in a group, and don't leave the cabins at night during the storm.
And what did they do?
They broke all 3 of those rules. Carelessness.
Sad.
Well, that brings us to the end. Are you? Do you want to plug anything? Are you going to do some comedy this week? We're going to go into do Dylan's tonight.
I'm doing Dylan's tonight.
7:00.
This was just kind of a one-time thing for now, but hopefully I'll be back down here soon enough.
I'm going to have you down here again for sure.
Yeah,
Have you back on the podcast.
totally.
Maybe we'll do Friday the 13th too.
Yeah.
Or you had some other ones you wanted to do. You wanted to do, what were the 2 movies you wanted to do? I wrote them down.
Snow White and no, not Snow White. Frickin' the Nutcracker and I had a lot to say about that movie.
All right, well, I'm going to put that on the list. And there was one more. I can't remember.
Might have been the Meg.
It was.
Yeah, the Meg.
And we didn't do a full-on review of that. We just talked over it. So we can do that one too.
Okay.
Classic Jason Statham fighting a shark. Well, my friend, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for coming down and doing this. That was a blast.
Thanks for having me. Great
Anytime.
to be on here.
All right, cool. We're going to call it there. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
This is Real Garbage.